Well, I just want to say thanks again for everybody who's joining today. We're really excited to have a couple good friends of ours, Dave and Jeff Bush. They've been in business a long time, and today we're going to go through how to better serve you as a company and grow your business. Little background about our two guests today. Dave is a former All-American collegiate athlete, University of South Dakota. Um, Ironically, he even played with Kurt Warner and the Iowa Barnstormers. He has a degree in mass communication. He did go on to play professional football. He started for the Iowa Barnstormers, located here in Des Moines, Iowa. He did 4 years of that and made two trips to the World Championships. Then he went into banking and a few other industries. Every time Dave's been in a career, he's been extremely successful, and I think that's going to be very valuable for us today. He's consulted with over hundreds of businesses and helped them achieve extraordinary results. So, Jeff has actually been in the business in a couple different industries as well. Been a founder of multiple businesses, 4 B2B and 2 B2C businesses. He's grown companies from over 5 employees and 500,000 revenue to over 90 employees and 40 million in revenue in just over 7 years. Jeff's got a lot of different hobbies. One of his favorite is he got a 40-acre wedding venue in Southern California. Welcome everybody. I'm sure he would say welcome everybody to come on out and see it. But we're really excited to see you guys today, and we'll jump right in, unless you guys have a few comments before we get started.
Good deal. Well, thanks for having us, JW, and thanks, Mike, for hosting this. And super excited to be able to share some of the strategies and tactics that have worked for us and that have worked for other businesses that we've had a chance to consult with that want to grow revenue, grow sales, grow profits, and grow as a business to become more successful and significant. So super excited to be here.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. And money likes speed, right? It just does. You got to move fast, right? When things move faster, it just tends to be more money. So that's like, how do we do it quicker, faster? That's kind of what I've been living through over 30 years and maybe 3 or 4 different businesses, so hopefully we can share some tips that people get something out of, to apply to their business.
Jeff, I imagine at some point you're going to talk a little bit about at least one of the exits you've been able to successfully accomplish later today. If you want to maybe even bring that up right now before we kind of get into the Q&A, I'd love to have just a little bit of your experience on the last exit you were able to successfully accomplish.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, April 1st was the close date. It's been 3 years since I sold that business, but I started it in my barn, and it was just me on the telephone with a horse next to me kicking the stall. And they'd be like, "What was that noise?" I'm like, my wife's horse is kicking the stall. I was just out in the barn so that I could focus. I had 4 kids, so I couldn't really do it from the house. So I moved into this little barn and I start calling customers and just selling advertising. It was a direct mail marketing business. So junk mail, the stuff you get in your mailbox, that's what I did. And I was selling to mortgage companies. I had some knowledge of direct mail and I had some knowledge of mortgage. So anyway, start selling in the barn, and I did $1 million in revenue my first year, and the business made 150 grand. That kept me afloat, and wife staying home, 4 kids. It was like, that you needed that, right? And then as soon as I had enough money to start building the business, I went and got an office and hired my first salesperson. So now it's me and one other guy, and then a couple more. And then I just had this goal that I know I could build this business to $10 million in revenue, making $2 million a year. I just need to build the team, and hire salespeople. I mean, I'm working on the products a little bit. I'm doing some marketing, but the most important part was have a team, and I give them a system where they copy what I just did, and they can do $1 million in revenue and make 150 grand as a commission sales rep. And so eventually we went from just me to 20 salespeople. Took about 7 years to get there. And we ended up doing, $20 million in revenue and made $4 million one year. And then I sold the company, and then everything I'd put in place is funny. The next year, the company doubled, did 40 million in revenue, made a lot of money. So that was kind of interesting. People were like, "You sold your company at the perfect time." I'm like, "No, not quite perfect. It's hard to get perfect, So anyways, that was my story on my exit. A big, well, An 8-figure exit. So that was always a goal of mine. I want to sell a company and put a bunch of money in the bank and pay off all my houses and my cars and, have some money investment income coming in. So I got to realize that goal. It was cool, for hard working for, I don't know, 9 or 10 years from start to finish. I almost had it sold at 5 years, and then the market changed and my business went down and there was nothing I could do about it. So I had to rebuild it for another 5 years to finally get the sale, which was interesting timing. There's some things you can't do anything about, just keep plugging away. So anyways, that's some background on me and what I was doing the last decade.
Oh, that's incredible. I think the folks that are watching this are going to find a lot of value in what you and Dave have to say today. And I just think that's a perfect example of success. So with that, I think let's jump into some of the Q&A, and we'll watch the chat if folks have questions as we go along. But guys, I think I start with both of you guys have a tremendous amount of experience in consulting and growing businesses. And again, like we talked about, multiple industries. Each of the industries probably has its own unique challenge and opportunity. I know with your experience that will help a lot of the folks you're going to be working with. My question to you is, what are some of the recurring challenges that probably all business owners have that they need to know about, be prepared for, to help them scale in that meaningful way? And how do you help them overcome some of those challenges?
Yeah, I would just
Dave
start
or
off by
Jeff?
saying that,
Dave, go ahead.
that one of the most common things is that they oftentimes are just lacking of perspective in the areas to scale and grow. They oftentimes are limited by their own level of thinking to say, this is what we do to grow. And they don't have those ideas and strategies and tactics and tools that many other businesses have utilized to scale. So it's helpful to bring in outside perspective. And, people have different opinions about outside consultants and coaches and things of that nature. And we don't ever want to be put into just a category of consultant, because that's not really what we are claiming to be. What we really want to be is a growth partner. We want to be committed to organizations that have a desire to grow. So we have this 6-step process that we go through, and it's fairly simple. It's not super complex. We just start off with an assessment to really evaluate an individual organization's capacity to scale, because there's some common limiting factors. Sometimes it's leadership, sometimes it's operations, sometimes it's marketing, sometimes it's sales. And certain organizations get to a place where they can sometimes feel like, well, we're fully staffed, or we're working as optimally as we can. We're doing as much as the market can bear. And that's not necessarily the truth. It's the story that they've kind of fictitiously created around truth. And it's not to their own fault. It's just that they don't have that perspective to see how other businesses have scaled, optimized, or created more profitable revenue. And there's some technology and tactics and toolboxes out there that a lot of businesses don't even know exist. And so that's one of the things that we bring in when we do the assessment, and to see what's their capacity to scale. Do they have the factors or the resources to do what's necessary to scale in their particular niche, in their particular industry? And then the next thing would be is just business plans. Many people, many organizations, they created a business plan at one point when they were submitting things to the bank, or when they went through a consulting process or some event, but they oftentimes don't have an up-to-date financial plan. They don't have a financial scorecard. They don't have a clear vision and mission that ties the culture of the organization together. And so that's oftentimes where we come in and try to bring some of those metrics and break down simple milestones and achievement goals, where we can end up scaling and growing incrementally and predictably, just following a simple process. And Jeff could talk a little bit more about the financial scorecard. But then we move to marketing. We look at all the marketing components to find out where we could optimize lead generation, increase new qualified leads, or more opportunities for referrals and retention, and all kinds of different areas that we could optimize. And a lot of times, individual organizations are not getting everything they can out of everything they've got. And that's where we can come in and expose some different areas, or expose some different opportunities to increase profitable revenue without having to increase expense. And that could be through strategic partnerships or alliances, or it could be through better retention strategies, better technology to communicate. all kinds of different opportunities. And then the last three steps is sales, which Jeff is an expert at building sales teams. He and I both have cut our teeth over the last 25, 30 years building sales organizations. And that's one of the things where a lot of businesses, they get to a certain capacity of scaling, and then sometimes leadership is not at a place where they're able to take it to that next 2x to 10x growth. So they need some new strategies, some new staff members, or some new support resources to be put into play before they can end up scaling. The last two, leadership, new level, new devil. If you want to scale your business 2 to 10x, you better have leaders that are growing, because if they are fixed thinking leaders, not growth-minded leaders, you won't outperform your leadership level in your organization. So we work with leaders to grow their capacity to think outside the box, to be thinking more about what if, what could be, rather than this is the way it's always been, this is the way it's always should be. And then the last piece is operation. And that's where you guys are great partners, because you can provide so many great operational efficiencies to increase EBITDA and to increase the ability for organizations to scale without having to take on all that extra stuff. But Jeff, what are some of the common problems that you would say would be the top ones?
I think one of the most common problems is maybe the founder, CEO, the business owner that started the business maybe isn't clear on what his or her goals are. And they don't know how they're going to get there. Like they have this, oh, I've got a dream, I've got a dream. No, we've got a goal, and we work backwards and show how we're going to get there. Like if somebody's sitting there doing $2 million a year in revenue 3 years in a row and they're not growing, something's wrong, right? Or there's just no vision for, if the goal is to get the business to 20 million so you could sell it for $10 million, we have to have a plan to get there. So that whole reverse engineering, just running all the numbers and see what does it take to get there. I think a lot of entrepreneurs found businesses and then just kind of let it run them. They just have no specific metrics that they're trying to hit. And that's so important. Or another problem I see, a lot of founders just want to do everything. They're like control freaks and they can't delegate. So they're limited in their time. And how are you going to do all these jobs if you don't start hiring people? Like you can't hire 10 salespeople, train them, motivate them, and then also be the top salesperson in the company selling all the accounts. Like you've got to find a way to duplicate yourself. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that, I was just refreshing my memory on the book, The Millionaire Next Door. All those business owners, CEOs, $100 million people, they don't want their kids to go into business because it's too darn hard, and that just shocks me. Like they want them to be CPAs and attorneys, go make 250, 350 a year, but don't do what I've done. It's hard because all the stuff that gets thrown at you. So I think if you set a goal to build a big business, to have an exit, or turn it over to your family members and build this amazing income for generations to come, you got to be pretty thick-skinned. You got to be ready, because a lot of stuff gets thrown at you. It's all, you can handle it. It's not anything terrible, but the first time somebody sues you because overtime, or you got issues that come up, you got to be prepared for that and just realize that that's all part of it. Like everybody goes through this in business. This is not unique to me, and it's not going to deter me from my dream and goal of building this business to a certain level to give me a certain amount of income and hopefully a certain amount of freedom. I don't want to work 60, 80 hours a week. I want this business to pay me without me being here. I want to go to Italy for a month and come back and I made more money that month than the month before and I wasn't there. That's a good goal, and there's a way to get there. I just think clarity up front on what are we doing to drive this business to X amount of revenue, X amount of EBIT, and we're either going to, who knows, sell it or have this great cash flowing business and have a management team that can continue to grow it, and all those 6 steps kind of go into that. So
I would say that people oftentimes, or business owners oftentimes, don't want to make sacrifices, or that great book Jim Collins wrote, Good to Great. But there's that bridge between good to great when it's not so good. It's like you got to cross the bridge of failure to get to the level of success that you desire. And sometimes things are going fairly good and they're just comfortable. And while they say they want to grow, at the end of the day, they're not willing to go through, the struggle, the challenge to grow. And so they're constantly just hitting their head off of a certain ceiling that they don't want to break through, because they know that breaking through is going to cause, a bit of a disruption inside the business. They may end up disrupting, some of the people may decide to leave, and they fear giving up what they have and the good to get the great. And I would say that was probably the most common, is comfort or complacency.
I think faith and fear too. I was just thinking about that, how much faith you have to have that, hey, if I put in all this effort and invest this money, there's some risk there. You got to have some faith that it's going to come through. And if fear steps in, man, it just rips you down. I'm scared I'm going to get sued. You're going to get sued. Just understand there's attorneys for that. You're going to make it through. It's not going to bankrupt you. As long as you don't do things completely stupid, like listen to advisors like Mike and JW, keep track of the hours. There's a lot of class action overtime lawsuits right now, right? Meal and rest period. Everybody I know that didn't pay attention to their numbers is getting sued. But you know what? They're going to write a check for 25 grand or 100 grand, and they're going to keep going on their journey. And hey, I learned, better to learn from guys like you to kind of tell them, hey, here's how to stay in compliance. CEOs and founders are not always like, compliance is not usually their top level skill, me included. I mean, I've made mistakes, but I made it through, and we just keep pushing on, And so I think to not live in fear. I have a lot of people that own businesses. Oh, I'm just scared. I don't want to have a bunch of employees. Well, okay, you're not going to have a big business then. It's all dependent on you, and keep working 60 hours a week to make 200 grand a year. It's just, that's all you got. It's never going to go anywhere if you don't take some faith and build it. So
one of the most successful companies out there right now is a company called Tesla. And Tesla was not doing well. It was failing miserably. And I think it was Kimball Musk, Elon's brother.
Yeah.
He told the story where Elon said, hey, I need this X amount of dollars. I think it was like $5,000. And Kimball didn't have enough money to pay his mortgage.
Yeah.
And so he decided to sacrifice his credit rating to give his mortgage payment to his brother, and had his business, or had his home, go into foreclosure to fund Tesla, to get to the point where it actually had some success. And then SpaceX had some success, and they got some money again. But people don't realize that they were down to absolute rolling quarters to have the success that they have now. And if you don't have that level of desire, like Jeff said, if you don't have a purpose or dream or mission that's pulling you beyond your comfort level, the fear will overtake you, and the failure will frustrate you, and you'll go right back into that comfort cave, or go hang out in the valley of complacency. And that's not going to be what growth is going to require. So long answer to a good question.
I gotta say something real quick, Dave, because it's burning at me right now. We're talking about objective solutions that you guys offer, and yet the majority of our conversation is around these subjective, intangible obstacles that us as founders and owners of companies are facing. And yet you guys have still managed to make it go through an objective measurement process, let's call it the six steps, and come up with a way to streamline this spaghetti noodle mess of emotions and uncertainty and obstacles that all these CEOs and leadership are faced with. So it's very clear to us when we talk to you that you guys are really intentional about your approach with the companies that you work with. Is, without giving away all the secret sauce, I know that there's a lot of magic in what you do. Can you guys outline some of the maybe key strategies or deliverables that you use when you're helping these guys, these companies, these businesses exponentially scale profits? And particularly those clients, and I think we've all been there before or know somebody that has, who are, they want results fast, right? They want everything yesterday. How do you get through that if they're trying to exit, if they're trying to generate revenue fast, knowing that some of these things just take time?
Yeah, I would say that the secret strategy is not that secret. The reality of it is, the secret is most people don't do the simple things that are required. So I would just say that the 4 things that I have found are common is: 1, motivation. People have to have the motivation to go through the struggles and the sacrifices to get what they ultimately desire, which is the growth. The mindset, they have to be growth minded. They can't be fixed on all the things that aren't. They have to be open and curious to all the things that could be. The skill sets, they're not that, I mean, success leaves clues. I mean, we can go back and just take the clues from previous successes and say, here's some commonalities that we can just replicate. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, this is pretty simple stuff. Even in the most complex technological environment, there's still some simple strategies around business planning, marketing, sales, leadership, and operations. And yeah, there's going to be things that are, unique to your business or unique to your culture or unique to your industry, but it's not that complicated. And then the last piece is action. And this is probably one of the bigger challenges that we see is that most business owners keep telling themselves, I know what to do. I just need to do it. And the truth is, if you knew what to do and you knew when to do it and you knew why to do it and you knew who to do it with and you knew where to go about finding the resources to do it and you knew how to do it, you would have already done it. So be open and curious to what is it that you don't know. And that's where the third party perspective can bring some of the secrets to like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Or that's a really good point. Or, wow, new perspective, new opportunity. And then we just go about executing. And that's where I think that the difference between consultants and coaches and what we're doing, we're really growth partners. So not only will we provide you with the strategy, but we'll also provide you with the execution. So it's not left up to you to just do it. We'll actually help you to do it. And we'll even do it for you using our resources and our support systems to help you to make sure that you're doing things that work for other businesses. So you're not guessing, which that's where our value proposition is that we take the guesswork out of growth. We can show you how to do the growth and eliminate the expenses and the mistakes and all the things that come with it. But Jeff, what would be your answer to that?
Yeah, I was thinking about most entrepreneurs that I know are kind of egomaniacs with an inferiority complex, and I'm one of them, right? So we have a hard time living in the middle. So the ego tells me I know everything and I don't want to listen to anyone. And then insecure, I start, I'm home crying because things didn't go my way. It's funny that I think you have to be teachable, and I think humility comes into that. The other day, I'll give you a great example. We bought this wedding venue. It's funny, JW said it was a hobby. I'm like, I took offense to that. It's supposed to be a business. This business is going to make money. So we buy this wedding venue that's doing 5 weddings a year for $10,000. It brought in 50 grand in revenue. Maybe it paid the property tax for the big 40-acre property. It was kind of a joke. And I buy this business and I start applying my 6 steps: sales, marketing, operations, everything. We did 68 weddings last year, 68 for like 1.1 million in revenue, average weddings $18,000. And I'm thinking, I'm doing pretty good on my way to making money. The goal is to do 100 weddings a year, get them up to $20,000, 2 million in sales. I'll make 500 grand. 500 grand a year, pretty good income for a little business doing 2 million. So I've got my scorecard, my plan, what's blocking me. Well, the other day I found out one of my competitors, I'm like, I knew that they did like a lot of weddings, like possibly thousands. I knew one location 20 minutes from my house did 275 weddings last year. I'm like, if I did 68 and that guy could do 275, he's not that much smarter. He's not that much better. I'm going to figure this out. So I get on the phone with the VP of the company, and he says to me, Jeff, we own 90 wedding venues. We did 9,300 weddings last year at 18 grand. I'm like, oh my God, that's $164 million business making 30 million a year. And I just learned a lot by being teachable and being humble and reaching out and go, hey, I don't know anything. What do you know? I mean, I've done that a lot through my career. Like there's always somebody bigger, better you can learn from. So I've surrounded myself. Just being teachable was so important. Put my ego aside, get humble, and go learn from somebody, because I just took that and I've got a whole new perspective, and it kind of like motivates me at the same time when I start getting down. Oh, we only sold, 4 weddings this month instead of 8, and trying to like recharge. So I don't know why I broke into that, but the whole ego, humility, teachability is just so important. I try to stay teachable, and I think a lot of people, if they think they know it all, and it's amazing. I talk to guys all the time, like, you're doing $1 million a year for 5 years in a row. What you're doing is not working. Are you open to a new idea? Some guys aren't. No, I know how to do it. This is how I've always, and I'm like, the numbers say you don't know how to do it. You're not in growth. So getting them to be teachable, they got to learn something new to expand, anyways.
Yep. Well, I'll just go back to, the sports, we've talked about a playbook, we've talked about work ethic, we've talked about growing and building and understanding and coachability. And, obviously I played football for Bill Snyder, arguably one of the greatest coaches of all time, who, a K-State program versus a South Dakota program, who will clash in a few years. Obviously we know who will come out on top, but Dave, I think maybe from a sports background and a coachability standpoint, I think ultimately what you guys do and what we do as consultants, it leads us based upon that foundation of athletics. I really think that's a big part of it. And I know, like, for example, as a business owner, I have, kind of like you were talking about, Jeff, I have a lot of areas that I focus on, and those are typically the areas that I'm pretty darn good at. I know those best. And the areas that I don't know are either in a blind spot or they're the ones that I want to avoid. And, I think that's pretty typical of pretty much all business owners. Let's be honest. We have to grow and expand that. And, what I want to know from you guys is how you help to identify those areas that a business owner might be in a blind spot, might be just pushed by, but not only just identify, but how do you capitalize on the growth opportunities when they're being overlooked or maybe underestimated, and just because that company's leadership team isn't aware. So how do you bridge from, all right, we've really got to bring up this thorn in somebody's, or the blind thorn, and then get them going.
Yeah. Your sister's dropping the ball, screwing up the jobs in the back end. You got to get your sister out. That's fun. Family. Oh, but I trust them. Yeah, but they're doing a horrible job. They're ruining your company. Sometimes it's like, those are tough conversations, right?
Yeah, your
So
top producer is, not he or she is not liking change. Are you prepared to make changes and lose a potential top producer to go gain 5 or 10 other mid-level producers that would make it a more stable business and give it a much greater chance of growth? Because there's some pretty dominant egos when it comes down to sales teams. And Jeff and I both have had to deal with that drama and the trauma of losing a key player. And that's where that whole good to great scenario is, that dip. Are you willing to go through a dip? Not saying that it's a mandatory dip that everybody has to go through, but if your sales are limited, or your sales are, hitting a ceiling, and you're not willing to disrupt the current sales environment to, again, work with the ones that you got. But you and I both know, JW, from our sports backgrounds, and Mike and Jeff could definitely appreciate it. If your team isn't as qualified to compete, you're going to get beat by the competition. And some of the businesses that we worked with, they have subpar people in high quality positions. And, and they'll oftentimes say, well, we're fully staffed. Well, if we want to grow revenue from 1 to 2 million, we may not be able to have what we want with the people that we got. We may have to go out there and bring in new people, and we may have to challenge the people that are currently in the environment that are in there to do more. And sometimes that's the skill level or the leadership level that some business owners lack, is they lack that ability to transition and to move into a place of growth to say, this is the right decision. So when they're working with business owners like us, we can end up having conversations with them and giving them strategies and tactics, not to say that you're going to blow out your sales team, but there may be other ways that you can test the waters to explore how you can explode revenue. And the question I love to ask on a regular basis is, Mike, if I could show you a way where you could 2 to 10x your sales, revenue, and profit, would you be open to learning how we could go about doing it? Because if they're not answering that question with an affirmative yes, that's part of the assessment of assessing their capacity to grow. Because if you're not open and curious of how you can do it, there's not much we can do to help you to make those changes. But if you're open and curious, let's look at technology. Let's look at more sales enablement. Let's look at outsourcing. Let's look at resources that you may never have experienced. You may say, this is the way that we grow sales, and this is the way we've done it for the last 15, 20 years. But there may be a better way, and in the next 2 to 5 years, to take your sales volume to 2 to 10x that you weren't even aware of. All we have to do is just explore those.
It's interesting. You're talking about basically obstacles, but it starts with the owner, right? It starts with the president or the leadership team. And I know from personal experience, and I know you guys can all attest, that a lot of challenges arise when companies move from startup to growth, growth to scale. And you've given a couple examples already. Is there any other magic that you guys find when you're trying to tackle and overcome those things? For example, how do you have that conversation with the ego, right? How do you sit the ego down and go, look, you hired me to do this. This is what you said you wanted. And Dave, I know from personal experience, we've had a conversation like that before on a completely different level, but probably the same framework. And you got me thinking. So I'm thinking about the viewers and people watching this recording. What lessons, what additionally can arise through that startup growth scale phase as you go through those phases? What lessons have you guys learned from those experiences that the viewers today can take away from? Because I know you guys have a lot of knowledge in that space, but it's hard, I think, for that one example in particular. How do you break into that ego and assuming they're willing to do it? Is it just, do you feel it? Is there a series of questions you have to ask this person? What does that look like?
It's a good question. I mean, is it timing? When is somebody ready to go? Usually there's some pain, right? Pain's a great motivator. I don't do anything until it gets painful, right? Making changes, So you got to hit them at the right time. Like, it's painful that my income went down or my expenses just went up and I got to go make more money. I think pain's a big motivator. So you could dance around this ego thing and ask somebody if they're teachable, but they might not be until there's something happening in their life where they're ready to go, or they set a big goal, or they have a big dream. I want to buy $1 million boat. I want to have a second home. I want to take care of my in-laws and buy them a house or pay off their house so they can, there's like all these big dreams and goals that we have, and some are probably more valuable than others, taking care of people. But I think that the timing's got to be right. We might move somebody to push that along by asking the questions and pointing out some things of trying to just get your business to grow. Are you willing to step away from this part, or hire a sales leader? You hate interviewing salespeople. Okay, we need salespeople. Let's go get a sales manager that'll do it. It's funny. I was just shuffling through some papers when you're talking about secrets, and I signed up to do interviews, mock interviews for San Marcos College. And so I start interviewing these kids, and it's their first interview. And I'm like, I'm going to interview you as if you're going to work taking a sales job at Hawk Ranch selling weddings. And it was just hilarious. I did 4 of them last week and fulfilled my little, I'm going to help the college kids, And it was interesting because I went back. I've hired 1,000 salespeople and I've done 10,000 interviews over 30 years. No lie. I mean, that's my job, was building sales, and I hired 1,000 salespeople. I don't know how many people could say that, and did 10,000 interviews over 30 years. And this is my interview that I use every time. It's like 25 years old, but it's still relevant. And what JW said, this was kind of interesting. One of my questions is, what have you completed in your life that required great self-discipline and persistence? And I just sit back, and the answer is, only award top points if they provide specific evidence that they can discipline themselves to do boring, repetitive activities to achieve long-term goals. Can they endure pain to achieve gain, like competitive athletics, the Marine Corps, farming, self-supporting four-year. I'm looking for that little, and I do 10,000 interviews. I hired 10%. So I hired 1,000. So this is how I'm weeding them out. But that's one of my interview questions. And it's funny, out of 4 college kids, I mean, they're young. They haven't really been out there in the world working, but only one of them had a good answer. I'm like, there's my girl. It was 2 ladies, 2 men that I interviewed. And then another one that I get a kick out of is, Describe an experience you've had uncovering a need before you offer your recommendation. 90% of the time, they're like, oh, can you repeat the question? Because they get real uncomfortable. Well, you're going to be in sales, and some girl said she sold wine club at the wineries, selling a subscription membership to ship. I go, what, how do you find out what their need is? And she was puzzled. I'm like, well, how about, do you drink red wine or white wine? You'd kind of want to know that before you sell them a membership, right? I was trying to like coach her along. So this interview really, there's one thing you cannot determine in an interview when you're out there looking for salespeople, and that's clock speed. So if they can't come up with an answer to your question, you're screwed. You cannot teach clock speed. So I was taught a long time ago, don't hire a salesperson that doesn't have clock speed. We can work with their work ethic, their script, their voice, if it's, phone sales, their presentation skills. But if they can't formulate an answer to a question, you got a problem. So that was the big screener. I was just kind of thinking about that. I don't know if I went down that sales road, but I never had 100% success rate hiring salespeople, but I had a 50% success where everybody else was 20, and it made me a lot of money. Just my interviews, how I hire people, onboarding them, training them, holding them accountable. That's all part of it. And that's more sales manager. Not every CEO wants to do that. So they might have to find someone to do that for them. I had to
Jeff,
do it.
is your work, sorry, Jeff, is your work with these clients, and this is a question for Dave too, but just out of curiosity, is the work you're doing with these companies, is it as much of an art then as it is a science? So like you'll use objective framework to get into the science, kind of I guess the science side of it, right? So you can help measure objectively kind of where they're at. But then as you start to unfold, and this is my educated guess here, or uneducated, depending on how you look at it, but then you dive in and you find that it's also a little bit of art here in terms of feeling folks out, what their needs are. I mean, how much of this is art versus science, I guess?
That's a great question. I mean, the science seems to me like the numbers, the arts, how are you going to change the numbers? And some of the art might be like reformulating their product. Like you'd be amazed how many CEOs are running businesses on 20, 30% margin. You're going to go bankrupt. There's no money there. How do we get products? Let's invent some new products or some add-ons to get your margin up to 50 or 60% so you can afford a sales team. My boss used to tell me, Jeff, profit's not a 4-letter word. I never forgot that, like, okay, we got to make a profit if I'm going to make money, and the salespeople are going to make money. So yeah, art and science. And we'll talk to a 25-year-old kid who's got an amazing company, and his whole success has been the product's pretty cool, like a tech product, and he's the first one out with it and he's getting customers on, but they don't have a clue about like managing people, and they're just the CEO, engineer, created a product, revenue's coming in, but they might need something totally different than the 55-year-old CEO who's got this experience. So art and science, yeah, each person and company is a little bit different. But one of the things that I'm excited to work with people on is fixing their margins. You got to tweak the product. You're selling something just like 100 other companies. You're not unique at all. And so you're in this price war, and you got to get out of that cheap price thing, because there's no money in cheap prices. We raise prices a lot to increase margin, and to have a successful business where you can afford to hire people, pay them well, and have a profit at the end of the day. So I think a lot of people sell a little scared and just sell cheap, and very rarely do you make money selling cheap. So we work on the product and looking at what the customer, how they see it. You're just like everyone else. I can go get that at Amazon. I can go to Costco and get that. You got to differentiate yourself. So that USP, unique selling proposition, is pretty important. So we go to work on that. I guess that's kind of marketing, but it kind of helps sales. In my opinion, marketing is just a slave to sales. Marketing means nothing. You got to sell something. But if marketing makes it easier, let's tweak the marketing a little bit. But let's look at the product too. If your product sucks, and nobody's buying it again, there's work on the product. So, right, you got like all the, it's the pea under the shell game, and everything's got to be looked at. And maybe you improve each item a little bit to get the overall result and get the company moving in the right direction, where revenue's going up, customers are sticking around, the marketing's resonating, the new products are exciting and keeping people motivated. So it's that whole kind of package, and each business that we're working with seems to have a little different challenge. You got to learn that CEO and make sure that CEO is sitting in his or her sweet spot, to to really drive revenue and motivate the people to stick around. When I got my sales team hired, it's like I'm no longer selling customers. 80% of my day was focused on selling my employees to stay on the goal, on the dream, on you're going to make more money. I mean, I stayed in sales the whole time, right? Because we're like a nobody coming out of nowhere, no brand recognition. So you're still selling as a CEO, you're selling your people on what's going to happen, where we're going to go. You're going to make more money and kind of driving that up and keeping people around. So you have low fallout and churn on employees. So anyways.
Yeah, and I would go to the art and science is that, the steps are available. Like the path is already laid before us. Like we know the steps to take. The art is working with an individual owner at their pace and, not moving them at a pace that's uncomfortable or that creates a lot of collateral damage. But then also not slow, so slow that they don't see results and that they end up losing the vibrancy of growth and the excitement of growth because it's just taken so doggone long. So I don't know if you guys have ever watched there is a documentary. It is, I can't remember the name of it. It's on Netflix, but it talks about Russell Bryce and his successful teams that summit Everest. He's been climbing mountains for 40 some years and he's been leading expeditions. And I believe that he has in the documentary, he has the most successful summits of Mount Everest. And that trust in Russell Bryce, when Russell Bryce is climbing the mountain, and he usually takes like a team of like 8 or 10 people that go on the summit, and they each pay a large number of money to be on Bryce's team because he has these successful summits and they want to get to the top and they don't want to die. And he also has a level of trust with them that when he says, you're not fit to climb, it's over. There is no more discussion. It's you're going down the mountain. That's one of the pre-qualifications of working with him because he won't allow people to die on the mountain because of his negligence. So that's one of the things that Jeff and I would probably say is a unique value proposition is that, if we're in a position working with a strategic partner on growing their organization, if we feel like that it's not going to work, we're going to tell people and we're going to be cultivating trust with them is that you're not prepared to scale. You're not prepared to do the things that are necessary. And we would much rather walk away from a consulting relationship and a growth partnership than to see a person continue or see a business ownership team continue to do things and not successfully scale, because we believe that a good name is worth far more than great riches. We want to make sure that our name is known for trustworthiness, is that they're going to tell me the truth, even if it hurts. And there's in the documentary, you see these people, they've spent a lot of money, but they're not physically able to make it to the summit. And he has them turn around, and the documentary shows them going back to base camp, disappointed, discouraged, depressed, because it was their dream to climb. But that's where they have the trust and respect. And a lot of times these people will come back to Bryce because he turned them around and didn't let them die on the mountain. He now successfully summits with them, and there's this connection authentically, and there's this trust that is not a science, it's an art form. And again, he has led a successful number of expeditions, so his evidence demands the verdict that he's trustworthy, because he's got a lot of people that have succeeded and not a lot of people that have died. And that would be probably one of the things that we would say with what we're doing, is that we're going to work with people where they're at, and we're going to be honest with them about what's required and what's necessary for them to take it to that next level. And if they're not prepared to do it right now, it's okay. We can reevaluate and reconnect at a different time. And the other thing that I'd say is unique about the art is Jeff and I's personalities are different. And we also have a team of business coaches whose personalities are different than ours. So we know, I think all of us have had either teachers or coaches that we identified with better. So Jeff is more of a driver personality, where he's going to ask people to do things that make them uncomfortable because he knows that it's going to be a requirement of success, where my personality style is a little bit more comforting. So I'm going to be there to kind of slow things down a little bit. And that's where I think that the two of our personality styles complement one another, because you need both of them. And there's some business owners that say, you know, tell me what to do. I want you to bust my butt. If I don't do it, I want you to, rake me across the coals and tell me all the things I didn't do. And some people, that would blow them out from the possibility of growing. And so it's the ebb and the flows and the art form that comes in communication and personality styles. And we have a depth of our roster where we can go to the bullpen and bring out a strategic person to make the game a winning game. So is that enough sports analogies for you?
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, and I think part of why Bridgemark and Grow My Profit work so well together, and why we were successful in working together on consulting deals is, Mike and I were in a meeting last week, and it was all about, we're going to meet you where you're at, and we're going to push you, but we're not going to push you to the point of no return. We're not going to push you to an unacceptable rate, but we are going to work with you the entire process to make sure your goals are accomplished in the time that is expected. And so I think that's really important to be able to do that and ebb and flow properly. So with all that though, let's talk about one of the things you see all the time: technology this, technology that, artificial intelligence, AI, whatever you want to call it. That is just such a top of the mind factor. And I know you guys are using technology. I know, Jeff, you've used a lot of technology, whether it was print or things like that, but give us a little insight on how you've leveraged technology to rocket growth in the businesses you're working with.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm just thinking, I'm building this little wedding business from 50,000 to $1 million and on its way to 2 million, but I built the $40 million ad agency. So, we were not necessarily tech companies, but if you don't get a hold of tech to pull all your numbers together, like what I'm thinking is like, I was just talking to a lady who said, I can't believe I found a business that's $1 million business that's using Google Docs, Excel, and a CRM, and just none of it talks to each other. And they built $1 million business. I'm like, I built a $20 million business that way. I was kind of laughing because she was making fun of them, but yeah, pulling all of your numbers together, like if it's your CRM and your financial statement and your scorecard. I mean, I'm big on building tech that'll make it easy to look at that every week, because you need that to hold your salespeople accountable, to hold your management team accountable, whether it's operations, accounting, sales, marketing, IT. I mean, that's such an important piece. So I'm big on having the technology that'll pull all the numbers together, because if you don't know your numbers, you just can't really run a business. You don't know which way it's going. As far as, technology and the product, I mean, like right now I'm selling weddings, right? There's not much technology. I guess one of the things we just did was, we're $18,000 weddings trying to get to 20,000. What could we offer the bride that would let us charge $20,000 for a wedding? And one of the things is, let's build a wedding website, and we'll send out all the invites for them and manage that food bill. Like if 100 people are invited and 80 people came, we'll do the invite. We'll build a wedding website for them with their picture, their engagement, and they love it. It cost me like $200. I could charge $1,000 for it. Okay, now I'm from 18 to 19. So building technology, websites or whatever, or doing the wedding invites online and offering that to the bride is kind of a little bit of tech that allows us to hit our goals. I don't care how we get there. I just want to get our average revenue per wedding needs to go up for us to make our profit goal, So I don't know if that, I mean, we're starting to deal with some tech companies that are, it's very complicated, right? The tech stack, the CTO, it's going to cost 250 grand and we're going to launch in 6 months. And now they're 500 grand into it and it's been a year. You're like, ruh-roh, go raise some more capital, right? Like you got to talk to a different group that's got to loan you some more money it's like that whole, I think we can do it with this. And it seems like a lot of people are off the mark on that, So I don't know, Dave, you got anything on the tech side?
Yeah, I
Sure.
think that there's a good relationship between high tech and high touch. Too much high tech and you lose touch. and too much touch, and you lose simplicity, duplication, and automation. So I think that there's a good balance, and we meet every organization where they're at. Like, if we met a $20 million business that was using, toothpicks, duct tape, and Google spreadsheets or Google Docs to run their business, we're going to meet them where they're at and show them some ways to improve securities, improve strategies, being able to use technologies to do behavioral profiles that you guys provide. I mean, that's a huge, huge return on investment, because people will tell a computer things they won't ever tell a manager or supervisor or an owner. So utilizing technology for behavioral assessments or personality profiles. Jeff uses the DISC profile to interview sales professionals. And without that, Jeff would have spent tremendous amount of time interviewing people that were not a good fit. So he disqualifies them based upon their personality profile. And yes, he may end up, missing out on some gems that are diamonds in the rough, but he has a specific personality style that he knows that is the vibe that attracts his tribe. So he knows specifically how to use technology to have a better outcome for the hiring process. Same thing goes with automation. We've got new technologies, and obviously with the advancements of AI, by the time that this, webinar video is presented, it's going to be outdated with something, because there's going to be some new technology that's being added. And that's one of the things that we bring to the table, as I know that Bridgemark does as well, is that we bring innovation and ideas to owners that they don't have the time to go out there and do all that research and do all the due diligence to make sure which one is the right one. So we bring proven partners to the table that we have already done the research and we've already done the comparison to know the benefits and the disadvantages. So whether it's marketing or sales automation, utilizing, building outbound sales teams and using third parties or overseas parties, sales enablement that's all virtual, building virtual networks. I mean, we've got technology companies that can be brought in to actually design that system and actually simplify it for the business owner so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. So yeah, definitely lots of opportunities, but as technology grows, we'll expand that with the businesses that we're partnered with.
I can't imagine I've ever run into anybody that owns a business or runs a business that doesn't want or find a need, when they're being honest with themselves, about having a growth partner. We've had such a great discussion today with you guys, Dave, Jeff. It kind of leaves me with at least one more question if we've got time. If I'm a business owner and I want to partner with you guys to grow and scale my business, what are some of the different programs that you offer? And then for any of those folks that are listening today, how would you tell them to get a hold of you guys so that they can learn more about what it is you can do for them and maybe what their next steps would be?
Yeah, well, I would just say that the best thing to do is to go back to the link that is included with this video, because we've created a strategic partnership with Bridgemark, and we're providing complimentary services, resources, tools, as well as a complimentary assessment where we could sit down and have a conversation about what the opportunities are for your organization. So make sure you take advantage of the benefit and the strategic partnership resources that are already available and available at no cost. And then we'll also be able to provide you with the specific discounts available to Bridgemark clients and referrals. But as far as options, is that we've got a couple of different ways that we work strategically with organizations. Smaller organizations that have less than $1 million in revenue, we have built an online learning management system that we give access to that has a lot of do-it-yourself type of videos, downloads, resources, and it's step by step. It's not something that's super complicated, but it gives organizations that want to grow, that maybe don't have the extra cash flow to invest into outside growth partners like us, they can to leverage that opportunity. We do make some exceptions to fast-growing companies that are just getting started and they have some innovation and some opportunities to scale at a much faster pace. But for those organizations that just want to get started, that are smaller in nature right now, we give them access to a complimentary conversation, strategy assessment, and then we give them access to our online learning management system, which is just a small membership fee every month, and they can cancel at any time. And we do group events, webinars, and opportunities where it's not all e-learning and learning management. There's some high tech and high touch combination. And then we also will do 6 to 12 month consulting agreements with organizations, and we customize those consulting fees and relationships based upon what the company needs and what it is that we need to provide to help them to scale. And we do provide fractional executive services such as CEO, COO, CRO, CSO, all the things in between that help organizations to scale. So if you need more time or you need more resources, you don't have to go out there and piece it together. We'll help you to piece it together, and we'll bring the team to you. So, you know, for $5, $10, $15, $20, $50,000 a month, you can bring a fractional team of highly qualified, highly experienced individuals that can execute on what it is that you need to do in a fraction amount of time, rather than just taking that 5, 10, or 15 or $50,000 and giving it to one individual or two individuals, and then having spots left open that are not being filled, and then depending upon those one or two people to get it all done. So that's the strategy that is where we oftentimes will start off with companies that have over $1 million in revenue. And then we also partner with companies on a consulting for equity basis. We end up working as a growth partner. Usually we'll do a 6-month kind of a test case just to kind of see how we work together and make sure it's a good fit to be partnered long term. But if we find a company that really wants to grow, we'll spend more time and effort to help their business to scale, and we'll just benefit in the growth opportunity that comes from it.
That's awesome. Look, Dave, Jeff, it's been an awesome time talking to you today. We got founders of Grow My Profit here. Jeff, did you want to chime in on anything before we close out?
Mike,
That's
real
funny,
quick, I
Go
have
ahead.
one quick question from the audience, and again, Jeff, then I'll let you finish up. It's for you, Dave. It's how bad will K-State beat South Dakota when they play in a few years?
Well, they say that Kansas State is the best football money can buy. So, you know, with that kind of money and all the money that you've been donating just to try to beat these smaller FCS schools and feel good about it, we'll see. Take it away, Jeff. Close us up.
Yep. So, yep.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you know, they can go online and watch our 6 steps to help grow your business for like $100, right? And then if they get something out of it and it resonates, then you step up to $2,500 or $5,000. Or some of these guys, we're not charging them anything. They're giving us equity in their business to help them grow it. We're going to go from $1 million to 10 million or 5 to 50, and we're going to have a big exit, and we all get paid at the exit. So there's a lot of different ways to work with us depending on, but it's like $100 all the way up to we're going to share in the millions when you sell, you know. So different options, different people, they reach out, email, call, we'll set up free consultation. So just to kind of wrap up what Dave was saying.
Yep. And to the audience, if anybody has any questions about the success that Dave and Jeff have had with some of our clients, we're more than happy to share that as well. We're really excited to have them as a true trusted partner and a true success story for our clients as well. So guys, we just want to say thanks for being on today, and
Thanks, guys.
wishing everybody the
Good
very
seeing
best.
you again. Right on. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.